There we go. Oh no, I'm not done yet. I forgot to play on the virtual event. Okay. Hi, virtual audience. If you are joining us virtually, you can interact with the event by typing a question as a comment, and we will have audience Q&A towards the end of the event. I am Shane Mullen. I'm the event coordinator for Left Bank Books. I help produce over hundreds of author events each year with a fantastic team here in St. Louis, including owner Chris Kleindienst, who is sitting in the back of the event, also a big fan of tonight's book. We are doing a ton of in-person programming as well as hybrid events and virtual events. I would tell you about those, but I want to get to the event. So just be sure to check out our red calendar on left-bank.com. J.R. Moehringer says, "The love you save will console and inspire countless people." And if you didn't know, J.R. co-wrote or ghost-wrote the new Spare book, the Prince Harry thing. So really incredible blurb. He apparently does not blurb very often, so this is quite an honor for him. Tonight's book is described as, "I know why the caged bird sings meets educated" in this harrowing, deeply hopeful memoir of family, faith, and the power of books, from acclaimed journalist and human rights activist Goldie Taylor. Goldie Taylor's debut memoir shines a light on the strictures of race, class, and gender in a post-Jim Crow era America, while offering a nuanced, empathetic portrait of a family in a pitched battle for its very soul. Profoundly moving, exquisitely rendered, and ultimately uplifting, The Love You Save is a story about hidden strength, perseverance against unimaginable odds, the beauty and pain of girlhood, and the power of the written word. I will say I have had the privilege of reading this book, and I will call it a privilege to read this book. It is stunning. You are about to take a tour of St. Louis from years past that will be just an incredible remembrance. Goldie's story is incredible, and I loved reading this book. If you don't trust me, Nikki Kendall, the New York Times bestselling author of Hood Feminism, says, "In The Love You Save, Goldie Taylor weaves a vibrant retelling of her youth, and by proxy, a side of America that is rarely seen on the page. Instead of pathologizing hardship, Taylor celebrates survival and gives the readers a front row seat to a fascinating and poignant life. Deeply honest, it is an important cultural document wrapped in a memoir. Words are powerful. The pen can be our best weapon, and here Taylor shows us that she survived and thrived because of them." Mrs. Peggy Lewis LeCompte is a senior advisor for the Office of Illinois State Representative Latoya Greenwood. She retired from East St. Louis School District 189 after nearly 40 years as an educator. LeCompte is actively involved in many community organizations through leadership roles. She is a former international board member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Inc. and the 10th national president of Top Ladies of Distinction Inc. LeCompte is also involved in the Illinois Retired Teachers Association Gateway chapter of the Lynx Incorporated and the Metro East Domestic Violence Committee. And she will be our conversation partner this evening for Goldie Taylor. Goldie Taylor is a journalist, political analyst, and human rights activist. She's been featured on NBC News, MSNBC, ABC News, CNN, HLN, The Steve Harvey Show, and Good Morning America, as well as NPR's All Things Considered. She has written for Salon, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, St. Louis Post-Dispatch, The Griot, Huffington Post, and as editor-at-large for The Daily Beast. She shares my birthday, which is incredible, and she lives in Boston. Without further ado, would you please help me in welcoming the incredible Goldie Taylor and Ms. Peggy Lewis.
We haven't started talking yet, and I look out and I see him cousin. I call him my young big cousin, and his mom, because I was talking about Janice just a moment ago, and I'll start this before we get this conversation. For those of you who read the book, you have seen our family as it evolved over time, and you saw these pictures of us together on my Auntie Gerald's back porch, and my Uncle Ross over this converted grill, and us clearing the yard of weeds together, and the lot next door, the house that was never built. You saw these things, but you saw a family of cousins that we ate together, fought together, laughed together, and the bonds that we shared were as thick as brother and sister, all of us, as if we had come from similar parents. And so I'm going to point out where I can see here that my cousin Janice West, is here on the far left. Marcio, who you hear in the book as Fat Man. Marcio Haywood, his wife Phyllis, is here tonight. I can't see everybody, so excuse me that I don't have, even if I had my glasses on, it wouldn't make no difference, I promise you. But I just wanted to point them out because when I tell you that they are essential to me, that all of the things that I've been able to do in this world, it was because they said I could. And they believed that. No matter how far I got outside the lines, and when I tripped and fell and stumbled, and they never stopped believing that I could, and never stopped telling me that. And so for that, I thank you. With that, we'll have a book event tonight. This is the Peggy Lewis of Collins, who is also in the book. So I'm going to hand this to her and then be open for conversation and any questions that you all may have here tonight.
What do you mean you're gonna hand this to me?
I'm gonna let you.
What does that mean?
Because you've now read this. And, I think everyone has a picture of themselves, of, who they believe they've come to be. But you knew the little girl in the 8th and 9th grade. And, what did you see when, we walked into your classroom in my big voice and outside ways?
It's being a teacher is a calling. And in that calling, it's kind of like being a witch that can read and see people and see something internally that other people may or may not see, or if they see it, they don't know what it is. When I met Goldie, I knew there was something there. There was something more that walked into room 017A, because we couldn't have any other alphabet beyond A. We were 8 personalities. And it was that I saw that I thought I could help bring out. I never knew it would grow into this. But it was like looking in a mirror and seeing something beyond yourself and knowing that you had an opportunity to reach inside and leave I didn't think I was gonna leave a whole seed, just a little drop of something to encourage students. And I didn't know anything about her personal life. That was not a part of what I knew. What I could see was someone that I could project into the future, my future, the future of the world, and that I need to bring that something out. That's something that so she could see it, so that she could to work to overcome. I don't think she had any inadequacies because she was always, everybody in my room was arrogant, including the teachers. So put that aside, that there were any mice walking around. Everybody, matter of fact, we were so full of ourselves. We had our own name and our own colors. The school was warriors. We were Lecomp's Lions. We had our own shirt, and we would close that door. And in that room together, my students and I made our lives. I taught Mr. Haywood down there. That was one of my students. But when you saw a Goldie, there are not a lot of Goldies, but there are a lot of people with Goldie potential. And it was that the talking, the being able to reading, she was very astute. She didn't play around. Of course, I didn't either, because I don't. If you have it, let's deal with it. Let's use it. Let's grow it. Let's nurture it. Let's make sure it's out there. And you just are the epitome of some of what I thought I was doing, but wasn't sure about it. And so what else you want me to say? Just,
Yeah, I lived for, the first one to tell you that when I walked into a classroom, I was afraid. But all of us were, because those first days, she laid down the walls of what it was going to be like inside of this classroom.
excellence without excuse.
Excellence without excuse. And that carried no matter where else you were in the building. And so if she got a call you to come to the office because of something you did in somebody else's class, and she had to take time from her break to come see about you, there was something, you were going to have to deal with something, right? And so there was this, so I was afraid at first, but the more she gave me, the more I wanted to do. All I wanted, I think, from her, from my Aunt Geraldine, you know, from the authority figures, the strong authority figure women in my life, I wanted them to be happy with how I did. So I sang in church on Sundays because it made my Aunt Geraldine happy. You know, I went to these speech and debating competitions, scared as I was to do them, because I knew I could see the pride that Peggy Lewis and Comp would have for us, for her team of students, that she was preparing to go and do these things, that she was taking us places, and we were achieving things that people said we couldn't, that we were living way beyond expectations. And so I think that's what I got coming into the classroom it was more than encouragement, it was an inspiring thing to see a woman that you wanted to be like, that was black and sure and regal and, you know, excellence without excuse in that car. With AK-14 on the license plate that sat outside. You know, we were, and it was myself, Tamiko Youngblood, Aretha Williams, and I are still in touch. The girls in our classroom, that we were the Comp's lions, it meant something to us.
And we were lady lions. We just
Lady
weren't
lions.
any old kind of lion. You had to be ladylike, not prissy, that's different. But we were not filled with ourselves, but aware of who we were, what we could do. And there was no one to me, in any class I taught, that did not have some potential, that did not have a talent that I thought I did not have. And if I did have, to share as much of it with them as I could, to make sure that America had outstanding young people who knew they were outstanding young people, and that was their role in life. And that was a Goldie Taylor, and she mentioned in her book about me moving the chairs around, and I was talking to one of the students, former students with me, Dwayne Hoover, and I moved my desk and room around quite frequently, but that was because I wanted everybody to have an opportunity to be in the front. You know, it's like if your name is up with belongs to it's Y, X and Y, and they put you in alphabetical order, you're always at the end. There was no alphabet in my class that never had a chance to be in the front. Everybody was front row performers.
Everybody.
And that's what I believe in. And I also think that if you are the teacher, somebody is always watching you. Always. And I was always very cognizant of that in my personal life and in my role as a teacher. Yes, I came in the room every day. I came in with my high heel shoes on. The kids talked about it so much until finally, as I got older, I took the shoes and put them in the drawer, and I would strut the room with them on, and then I would take them off and put on my flats. But I wanted them to know that my outfit was complete.
I came along the slipper era. And they were beautiful. Yes, I must tell you, exquisite. I tell you what I got that I didn't get anywhere else. You know, I was in school in St. Anne, in elementary school. St. Anne at that time was an all-white town. We were one of 3 black families living there at the time. And so we really felt like fish out of water, but there was this quality basic education that you were going to get in St. Anne that, you know, it was just expected. But when I got to East St. Louis, there was something more. There were reflections of myself everywhere. That the posters on the wall, the poets that she gave us. She didn't only give us Invictus, she gave us For My People, Mark Walker. But I remember when you gave us Invictus, and Paula Nash and Aretha Williams turned it into a rap song.
That's what I'm talking about. What you listen to?
Out of the night that come must be blacks, the bit from pole to pole. Yeah, they started singing it. And I still remember it today, and I know that Aretha does, and Paula does. Yeah.
I am the master of my fate.
Captain of my soul. So that you have someone who believes that these black children coming from a myriad of circumstance. And we had children who in our classroom who were in two-parent nuclear homes. We had students who had come from generational foster homes, that their parents and their parents too. We had students in our classroom who, I think one came from St. Louis side of the water.
Yeah, we had a couple
who were
there illegally.
there illegally. They crossed state lines to come to Rock Junior High School to be in Peggy Lewis LaComb's classroom. I think her mother's name was Goldie too, only other Goldie Taylor. And we're in touch, Andrea and I are in touch, but they have Missouri plates on the car. But someone who believed enough to put Invictus in our hand, to put the Iliad in our hands, and knew that we could handle this and some more, that meant more to me than any other place that I went or have been since, is that you had a belief in human potential that I have never witnessed. Never witnessed, yeah. I hope that I have drawn you as accurately as everyone can see you in this book. I hope that I have drawn you.
I think you pretty much captured it. As I said, once we closed that door, once I signed in and came to, as I told one of the principals, I don't run anything in here, but I am going to run 017. Once we came into our meeting, into our room, where one time we even had a cat that resided with us, it was ours. And once people sent their students to me, their children to me, to me, parents send children to you for you to get the best out of them that you can give them and get out of them. And that's the way I proceeded. So if you had anything in you, I think I just say being good,
Yeah.
we tried to make sure that you had a chance to showcase that, to use that with your fellow students. And the workroom was very competitive, trust me. There was no one in there after about the second or third day didn't think they were beyond excellence. That's what we promoted with no shame. I don't care what everybody else is thinking. I also did not believe in the word can I. Don't tell me you cannot. You can do anything you want to do. Anything. So let's put on our compliant shirts and our compliant attitudes and live up to the expectations of our mothers and fathers and of the brains that somebody told me they had sent into my room. Sometimes I went out and found those with brains myself. When Goldie came, she had not had any of the tests that we gave the young people to determine if they were in advanced placement. But when I went upstairs and looked, she didn't even know I was up there. I looked in the window and I looked her over real good and I said, well, she looks like she's smart, just sit her on down if she's not going in the back. And so she came in as if she had been there all of the time. She fit right in with the group.
I remember that morning when Auntie Gerald, we only lived a block down, the next block down, but we drove around the one way. And Grandma was on the deal, we drove around one way and parked outside 8th grade building. And she had this conversation with me about what she expected of me inside that school. And, I asked her that morning, why are you so hard on me? She said, because I know that you can be something in this world, be something to somebody. And she laid out her set of rules for the day. But then we walked up those stairs into the office. Mr. McNichols was in there.
Remember Mr. McNichols?
Dear Lord, I do.
I was scared of Mr. McNichols.
He kept a fierce protector behind those speech competitions. He wants to know how I did and what I did. she was in there the first morning, but my aunt Gerald told the secretary, I just need you to know that she's gifted. I just need you to know that where she's coming from, and I have her report cards. My aunt had several quarters worth of report cards from St. Anne, and I had perfect marks, and she said she wanted to make sure that I was going to be placed well. And I guess with Mr. Comstock on the outside class and Geraldine Ross on the inside class, there was really only one place I was going to be. And so I just remember having, as dire of circumstances that they felt like looking back now, I remember having people who fought for me, who fought for us in ways that even then we didn't understand. I didn't know why I had to be home at 3:33. If the bell rang at school at 3:30, we had to be down the street by this certain time and on the porch. I just thought she was being mean and, didn't realize what my auntie was after. She was after accountability for these children that were under her care, under her charge. So I had no idea what these things were about the cleaning of the house. I'm like, who needs to shine the banister like that again, right? But what she taught us was, I keep an immaculate house today. She taught us that what we have, we are to be good stewards of, no matter how small or large that portion is. And so you can go around to any of the Robinson children's homes today. I challenge you to go to any one of our homes and see how we keep ourselves. That came from Geraldine Ross and how she, modeled being a steward over the things that God entrusted in your care. She thought of them as everything that you had. She thought it was a gift from God that you were to care for in that way. She had some ways that I still don't understand. God knows mysterious ways. But I know that, and Janice will know this because she called Janice by her old name too. If she called you by your old name, you need to come ready. Because there was something that she needs to get with you about, get at you about, whatever that was. But I remember when she passed a couple of years ago. It was in the middle of the pandemic. I couldn't come home because my granddaughter is immunocompromised. She has complex maladies, and we were stuck in our house for months on end, couldn't go to the grocery store. I watched she was at Marcia's home, Phyllis's home, and she couldn't talk. And she was medicated and just hospicing at home. And she would sleep and she'd wake up and Janice would be caring for her and soothing her lips and making her comfortable. But all I wanted, I think I said at the log of books, all I wanted was to hear her call my old name again. I just wanted to hear her call my name the way that she did. I can hear it in my head even today. And so our lives were complicated ones because of the circumstance of what was happening to cities and happening to communities around us. But the love in our household was clear. Even if I didn't know what it looked like at the time, that it has informed how I raise my children today. But here's where I really want to focus tonight is, this is a memoir, yes. It's a story of a little girl who is hit by some horrific things. The afternoon that I was dragged into a house in St. Anne and raped, I was 11 years old. That I felt that day that something in me just died. That I didn't feel like there was a life worth living or that I was worth having. It took the duality of, actually it's even more multifaceted than that, of Mrs. LeCompton, not knowing my Aunt Geraldine, my Uncle Ross, my Grandma Alice who lived in the upper bedroom, the community of people that lived around our 9th and 10th Street blocks, some of them are here tonight, Hoover's on one end, Spells on the other, Coppins across the street, and the Carradines and the Fergusons, over here. And the store on the end of the corner kept changing hands. We put slugs in the conversation, but all of those people, it took all of them to rebuild what was a broken child into somebody who felt like she had some value. Things didn't go straight for a long time. Well into my 20s, I've been able to tell you that it is only probably in the last decade that life has begun to really come together for me. That even though I was on a world stage talking on NBC and CNN, that I was still carrying some stuff with me even then from that time. But as much as this is a memoir about we as a people, I wanted St. Louis and this country to be as much of a character in the book as everything else. I wanted people to know what was happening in the cities to the people. How it's impacting that these issues that we hear about on the news, when we hear about gun violence in the news, and there's somebody else on the other side of that gun. There's a family of survivors for every gun. There's a family of survivors. And those are people and not simply numbers. That when we talk about food instability, we're talking about people who are hungry. We talk about affordable housing, we're talking about people who don't have a home, who have no place to call their home, no place to lay their head. I wanted people to see the other side of the things they see on the news every night. If you're going to make policy in this country, if you're going to make policy, you should know and hear from the voices that those public policies impact. And so I think that's really what I was after. But I think the thing, if there's a thing with the book, for me, it isn't that one little girl was exceptionally smart or that she could read, or like, that was a good thing. Is that poverty is not a moral question. That we didn't have a lot. But Auntie Gerald and his lights never went out. The electricity man never came by our house to turn the lights out. Our phone was always on. 27142 300 was always working. Because my uncle went to work every day. Gerald was a homemaker. And worked out here on Skipper. Stevenson's Africa. And then a high rise not far from there as a doorman. And he left the car at home with my auntie most days to the bus to work. But honest days work, honest days pay. That is the meaning of working for us. And so that's really the meaning of the book, is that I wanted people to see that there are other brilliant young people in this country. There are more Goldies, more Pameras, more Aretha's, more Johnny's, Cortez, and the kids. There are more of us. But they need the same opportunity. And we've got to plant more bagels and coms in classrooms. We've got to put more roofers and homes on the end of the street. That if we are going to survive and grow as a nation, that we have to figure out how to meet people where they are, rather than in our living rooms as we watch the news making judgments on how we think people live.
Goldie, if you were going to speak to the day youth, we probably multiplied some of the things they have, the situations they have, they're very different. What would you say to them if you were in the classroom with a ninth grade, eighth grade Goldie Taylor, talented, but not quite as happy as she could be?
That everything starts right now.
Everything starts right now.
That you told us that the record starts now. Ninth grade, they start writing things down. Attendance and discipline, everything, and this will follow you everywhere into your work life. It will form where you will go to college. That everything, you don't have another moment to waste. That it starts right now. That what you do now will determine how much money you make in this life, where you will live, if your children will ever see college. what you do right now has implications for generations to come in your family. It certainly has in ours. I remember the day my cousin Michael West went off to college, and how proud we were that he was going north to Illinois. Came home when when here, came home for Thanksgiving. But yeah, that's what I would tell them is. But what I would say to you also is that they have different questions. We didn't have Google, we didn't have the internet. We had these rotary phones in the kitchen. We couldn't on the phone past 7. We barely had 2. We had 2 we came. But they have access to so much more information and so much more opportunity, much more in terms of ability than we ever had. Use it is what I tell them. Absolutely use it.
I truly had the time that I told you all that, the 9th grade is the first year of high school. And that's when they really started recording. That was what I told them for college and for the rest of their lives. I haven't gotten that, that's true. But our students sometimes don't seem to realize that that is so. So you left me, left rock, and did.
I wish. There are so many ways that leaving East St. Louis probably did more harm than good for me. Because then I was cast back into a sea of folks where I wasn't reflected anymore. There were no more McCombs around me. And I was in a sea of people going to school. And then I fell down again, probably around 16. I was at Normandy High School. We lived over Stanwood Drive off of Bermuda Road. And things just began to hurt. Just, rushing back. And there was no kind of support of therapists and psychiatrists. We didn't do that kind of thing, right? Boy, I believe in a therapist today, let me tell you. So we didn't have those, so I fell down again. I remember this distinctly. The saving grace, I think, was that my mother also had a new reset. She got a job in Atlanta. In June of 1985, we got on the highway and drove to Atlanta, where she was helping to open a new Marriott Marquis hotel. And that was the reset I think that I needed in life. There's still a little more struggle after that, but I knew at least where I was going. I was going to be a journalist. I was going to write. Didn't know how I was going to get there. I went to the Marine Corps because they promised me I could be a journalist, and that's exactly what they made me. And they said, you can write, you can talk, come on, we've got a job for that. You can't afford to go to college, we got a job for that. So that's the way the story restarted, is that we got on the highway and we moved. And I think both of us were brokenhearted going down that highway. Both of us were. Janice followed soon after that, and many more family came to move with us. Our family kind of migrated, so we're between here and Atlanta now really as a family. We don't see each other enough. I think that every year we come around, we talk about how we're going to change that thing, so we're going to keep working on that.
That was great. I wanted to say this. It just wasn't me by myself, because we had a teaching team.
John Forehand.
Yes, Forehand, Mr. Cobb, Mr. Nate, a few people who just wanted to be involved with what we were doing, were all the integral part. That's the one thing I think I see that may be a little bit different in this advanced educational world, is the ability to have those cliques or class. I think we were a class, we were not a clique. Working with our students. We're going to take questions from the people I'm on.
We're going to do that whenever they're ready. Who's my friend? There he is.
Yes, to see what's on their minds.
I see hands coming already.
Let's give another round of applause right now.
Hello, this is Mary Moss Goldie.
This is my father's sister.
Your father's brother, sister.
Well, he calls me sister.
Yes,
call him my brother.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
right.
Charlotte.
Yeah, well, your dad called us his sisters,
Did.
right? So, as a matter of fact, my mother stayed with your dad.
Yes. So
Briefly. Right, but what I wanted to ask was, you attended the high school, is Miss Lewis, is it, what's your last name? I'm sorry, what?
LeCompte.
LeConte, okay, you attended the whole 4 years? And-
No, 2 with her.
2 years? Oh, okay.
Eighth and ninth grade.
Oh, 8th and 9th?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay, because I know generally it would go from kindergarten, back during those days, kindergarten through 8th grade, and then from 9th through, 12th grade. So,
No, the East St. Louis School District was set up as 1 through 6, 7 through 9,
oh,
7
okay,
through 8, and then
oh, doing,
9 through 12. You had junior high school, middle school didn't start until the 80s, and now that's the new system, 1 through 8, et cetera, et cetera. That
yeah,
was, matter of fact, one of the interesting stories in the book has to do specifically with us getting into a contest when we were labeled a junior high school and had 9th grade and junior high, but we went to the high school competition, and their high schools began at 9th grade, but they challenged our winning because they said we were not a high school, we were a junior high.
oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, so
Well, I
we
know-
changed the whole system around, that's the way you did that.
Yeah, it's been a lot of transitions. My sister and I are both educators, as well. She retired, and I was a certified sub. But the principals used to always call me to come to their school and work, wanted me to work full time. But anyway, it's a pleasure to finally meet you in person. She and I have been communicating somewhat through genealogy.
Genealogy.
Right, I'm still working on it.
So,
Right, and the name of the school again that you went to?
Rock Junior High School.
Rock Junior High.
Rock
Oh,
Junior High School.
okay. And what street was that on over there?
It was on 10th,
On
10th in Ohio.
10th and
It
Ohio?
was now Catherine Dunn.
Right, you passed right by the Catherine Dunn Center.
Oh, Catherine Dunham, oh, okay.
Right.
And then you stated also that you went to Normandy, was
I
it in
did.
St. Louis?
It was in St. Louis.
Oh, okay.
When my mother bought her first home, after my 9th grade year, she purchased her first home, no one rented, and, sold her Marriott stock, I remember, for that down payment.
Oh,
And,
okay.
we moved to Normandy, and I went to Normandy High School.
Well, both of her sons went to Normandy and graduated from Normandy as well. Just catching, I'm not trying to take over with too many questions.
I remember.
Because people always tell me, you ask a lot of questions.
I remember driving along in San Diego when my Ancestry.com said I had a message. And it was Mary Moss, didn't have a photograph, and she says, I think that your father must have, a half-brother, I think you said. And I read it twice, and I was like, no, couldn't be. Got back to the hotel, I reopened it again, and I called my mother. And she said, yeah, that sounds like my son's daughter. And I called her and talked, and I cried, and I had all of this family that I had no idea that they were there. They lived right up the road from where we were living, and so I missed out on a great part of that, my father's extended family, because my grandmother Catherine, as I think you probably gleaned from the book, was highly insular. That she let sleeping dogs lie was her mantra. That she did not say, well, Uncle William lives here, maybe you should meet him. And so she didn't spend a lot of time. It was herself and her husband Roy. And she treated me as if I was the child that she never had a chance to really have and be with. And so that was it. So I did not have any visual into Marcella or any of her children. And now I have contact with my uncle, my late uncle's boys and their children. So I've got cousins, first cousins, that I didn't come up with, that we are finally now connected as a grown folk.
Yes, thank
Yeah.
God for ancestry.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
There's one right behind you.
Good evening. Thanks for coming. I follow you on Twitter, by the way. But since
I
we're
apologize up front.
that's okay. So I'm fangirling a little bit. But I have a question. What do you have for a message for St. Louis? People that are from St. Louis, we seem to have a love-hate relationship with this city, but with the uptick in crime, the gentrification. So what would you tell us to keep us, I don't know, inspired besides telling us to move? So what would you tell us?
I gotta tell you that no matter where I go, I meet somebody from St. Louis. And we are all proud of our hometown. That the chief of nursing, I work for Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, I'm the senior vice president there. That one of my colleagues is the chief of nursing, PhD, she's from St. Louis. There's a lawyer in Atlanta who went to St. Louis Country Day. His name is Ernest Greer. He's not just a lawyer, he's the global president of Greenberg Tartt, one of the largest firms in this country. He and his wife, Patrice. He is so proud to be St. Louis. So everywhere I go, Reginald Hutton from East St. Louis, didn't know him growing up, I know him now, could not be more proud. And his mother, still, the little insurance company they had up there was still there, last time I looked. But, so people don't ever truly leave the city spiritually. It breaks my heart, though, that you can't find the level of opportunity here that maybe you can find some other places. I think that public education has to be stronger to attract enterprise. You have to be a city where people want to bring their children. But if you get on the front end of that, then I think you would get on the front end of rising crime rates. Because I think my friend Van Jones says nothing stops a bullet quicker than a book. That miss and under education fuel violent crime more than anything else. Lack of opportunity, lack of things that are just out of reach. I will tell you also about something about St. Louis growing up. I never knew Wash U existed until I left here. We're literally not telling children about opportunity right in front of them. And so what I would say to St. Louis, my friend, Sarah Jones, a great friend, what I would say to Charlotte, I would say to people who are in positions of leadership and influence in the city, stop counting children out. But I would say that everywhere I go. I say that to the leadership in Boston, which is the biggest biotech and educational center, in the country. They are counting children out. Public education in Boston is failing. I would say it in Atlanta, where I spent, almost 35 years. That we as a nation have to stop counting children out. If we can get there, that will grow the tax base and the enterprise. That will grow quality of life. That will, get people more invested in environmental issues. That will get people more invested, in growing individual enterprise. We gotta stop counting children out. That's what I would say.
Hi, thank you so much. I just found out about this today, so I'm really glad I knew it.
I'm glad you did.
You mentioned it in passing, but I really want to hear more about, you said like in the past decade, you've really been able to reconcile yourself with your past and heal from it. And as somebody who is in recovery and is making a great deal to make reconciliation with my past, I'd love to hear more about that process for you, and if it was like a spiritual journey for you, and I'd love to hear more about that.
Oh, it certainly was. I will tell you what my mother says about it. She says, Goldie, if drugs or alcohol were involved, you would be dead. Because my life had gone so far afield that running just in the wrong places, wrong folk, it was just, just a little of those things for me that is the lucky stroke, I think, for me, is that I didn't turn to self-medicating that way. I did it in other ways. And so I think what did it for me is people change, they say, for only a couple of reasons. I was forced to change because I got to a point where I could not care for myself or my children. That getting out of bed in the morning the pain was debilitating. We were just after 9/11 homes, myself and my children living in the extended stay hotel. This is long before CNN and NBC and all those things struck. And so the change for me came because there was a bottom. And my mother, who had been so helpful over all that time, looked me in the face and said, "This is on you. When you want better, you will have better." And so that was, I think, the dose of tough love I had had. And I wrote my way out of it. I started writing columns for Creative Loafing in Atlanta. And one of them, took off. I wrote another one for Every Jet magazine, happened to meet a guy online, this guy Eric Easter, ran Jet magazine at the time, and I wrote a column about Sarah Palin called Woman's Worth. It was emailed, I was getting emails from Southeast Asia about this Sarah Palin column. And in the midst of all of this dark time that I was in when I wrote that column, I got paid $150 for it. And late, like 6 months late. Didn't have food from the table. That kicked off a brand new career for me. That is what pushed me back to journalism. That writing got me on the television for the first time. A lot of people's first time on the news desk might be a local news story here or there. My first time was on Rachel Maddow. And that was just, I was astounded at how far the writing that you put into my hands, how far that could take me. And so I had to write my way, write my way back. But there was something else I think you get to around reconciliation. There came a moment, even in the midst of all of this, where I had to look myself in the mirror and tell myself who I really am and what I have been to myself and to other people. And begin to reconcile that. Part of it is being honest with yourself and with those people. I have a gaggle of best girlfriends today. I'm the first to tell you that they almost left. And if I were them, I would have, when I was in my late 20s or so. But now that we're all 50 and 60, instead of running together and they're going to meet me in Atlanta tomorrow night to talk about this tremendous journey that we've all been on together. So part of it is just being honest with yourself. This writing is a part of the healing. It's a part of me resetting the bones. It's a part of me not just telling the world what happened, telling myself, being a witness for myself. And so the healing begins with honesty. If you can't be transparent with you, who can you be transparent with? And so that's where it started. It started with me just being brutally honest with myself for the first time in my life. Yeah. I hope that gave some bit of clarity about what this room's been like.
Questions?
There we go. I have one of my own too, so yeah, let them pipe in.
Reginald Little Young, he said it was my newspaper. And I must admit, I never knew anything about you.
I wrote a column.
And so I had to Google you.
Yes.
And when I Googled you, I was so impressed with your background and everything. And I'm so glad that I have the opportunity to be in your presence and to hear your presentation. And so I have a little question for you.
Yes.
Who is the journalist that you look up to, male or female? And is the field of journalism fulfilling?
There were a couple of people that I looked up to. When I was a little girl, all I wanted to do was Robin Smith. Locals, my solid wanted Robin Smith. And now some of my best girlfriends meet me tomorrow night, they're the Robin Smiths of their era. So Brenda Wood in Atlanta's gonna come and do conversation with us anyway. So that was who I wanted to be. But then I got into journalism in a serious way. And I began editing other writers. And my relationship with journalism changed. So now I've got Pulitzer Prize winning friends, friends who won national book awards, friends who are, graced the pages of the Wall Street Journal, work for the New York Times. But there is none that I revere as much as Ta-Nehisi Coates. And his writing is the kind of writing about lived lives that I tend to spend my energy with. But he's also the first person who said that there should be a memoir coming from me. We were on MSNBC some years ago, and we were talking about there had been the shooting at Newtown where these babies had been shot, and their teachers in their classrooms. And that weekend I was flying to New York to be on the Crusade show. They restacked the entire show. And I was on air with this young man whose name I had never heard of Coach before that day. And I'm telling my story about gun sense and that I'm a gunner. My father's a gunner. My brother Christopher is a gunner. But that if we can regulate cough medicine, Sudafed, then why is it that we can't put at least some common sense around the most dangerous consumer product in the market? And I told them the story of my father's murder and my brother's murder, who, we were in our early 20s when he was killed in Wichita, Kansas. They were remarkably the same fashion. So after that show is over, we're in the green room and Coach says, hi, I'm Ta-Nehisi Coates. When are you going to write a memoir? I think I said to him something like, all the beautiful people still alive, or, I laughed it off. I want to be able to do that kind of truth telling. And then lo and behold, now he's written, these books that are now circling the globe. And so I dropped him a note a few weeks ago as this book was about to come to market to say thank you. And so I got this beautiful message back saying that he hopes that it inspires more people to tell their story. And so if I look up to anyone in the world, it is Coates. And I'll tell you this, my very first column I ever wrote was in the East St. Louis Monitor that she placed. It was about the East St. Louis school teacher strike. I was 13. Very first column.
Just go back to work.
Just go back to work. So in some ways, I guess I was always doing this job. I was always doing it. So thank you to East St. Louis Monitor and every Black newspaper. Still putting it together today around the country.
Next question. Chris Kleindienst, owner of Left Bank Books, has a question.
Thank you. I just want to underscore that you were talking about the fact that you're a writer, and this book is beautiful. This is a beautifully written, poignant, at times heartbreaking, but ultimately hopeful book of incredible resilience. And the story you tell and the way you tell it, it's just beautiful. And I hope that folks read this book because should. You just should. And I think it will change you. And I thank you for writing it because it's so open and vulnerable. I think that's why it's so strong. And thank you for coming back to your hometown, sharing this remarkable moment with us because nobody else on your tour is going to get to listen to you talk to Ms. LeCompte. Thank you.
Thank you for what you do at Left Bank. It is felt well beyond the boundaries of this city. And thank you for bringing me home. I think that this is as special of a place as I've ever been. Couldn't do this book tour, this story. I mean, we'll go to the LA Book Festival in April. We'll do the Atlanta History Center tomorrow night. We're playing in rooms that I could only dream of. But being here at home in St. Louis has a specialness about it that I can get nowhere else. And so I am thankful to all of you who came out tonight, time out of your schedule to hear us talk about this book. I hope you will get it for yourselves and for other young people who just might need a word that I hope that you'll pass it on. But again, thank you so much. And ma'am, thank you. Bye.
If we do have time for a statement, real quick.
Absolutely.
Hi, Goldie. My name is Shirley Fine, and I want you to know that you are not the only one where excellence was pounded into your head. And it only took several emails to have you come to this tonight. I've never heard of you, but I've seen some advertisements about your book. And I said, well, let me read what's going on. But I want you to know that this happened before you came along.
Yes.
And it's still happening today.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. LeCompte.
Shirley Bond was in my very first gifted class. They were the first gifted class in the state of Illinois, sponsored by the University of Illinois. That's how I started my career with them. I had them 3 years, 3 summers, and we did everything. I can't even talk about everything we did. And so Goldie, you just added to the golden chain of excellence.
So I have a question. What's next?
You know, my daughter, Katie, your cousin, wrote a memoir and that came out in the middle of this month, where she talks about that period of time with her and what she felt as a young person. Now, we all know Katie went on to go to an Ivy League university and now is an educator herself in San Francisco. She told another side of our story. I think there is more to tell. I think I am living in it now that I'm raising, who is now turning 10, granddaughter, who stands 4'10". She's almost as tall as me. Yeah. She's one heck of a tennis player. But to talk about, you know, her journey and mine together is, I think, one for the the books. I think that's probably next to take on other issues that I don't quite hit in this first one, and how traumas are passed down through generations. And so that's probably the next book for me. But you just never know, Phyllis. I might wake up at 4 a.m. and decide there's another fiction story to tell. You know, they're just, my plan is for a second memoir that is present day. That's the plan. But Paper Gods, my novel, is now being optioned by Kevin Hart and Sunny Hostin for television series. We expect this one to do that same kind of deal. But next week, on February 8th, I will be on The View to talk about this book with Sunny Hostin and Ruby Goldberg, and so I'm excited about it.
All right, are we ready to do some signing?
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna do signing back here. Amber is waving in the back of the room. So we're gonna move Goldie out into the lobby. We do have books available for sale. Olivia's out there ready to sell you additional copies if you have friends, family that you think need to read this.
I'm gonna stop and hug my family.
Absolutely. All right, so we'll be there in a second if everyone wants to get lined up. Thank you so much for being here. It's really an honor to have you here tonight for this event.
Oh, yeah.